Alright, time for another draftphysics.com, debatephysics.com also, but the nature of the debate is the tricky part. And I don't know exactly what to do about it, but Ian Gosling has, the doxer supporter, has doubled down and basically said that yes, he thinks it is appropriate that people maliciously involve my family and send the police to my house because I dare to make statements on the internet, exercise my free speech right. So he's basically anti the First Amendment of the American Constitution and basically doesn't think that speech should be free, that you should be threatened and extorted, and you're obligated to believe what he believes. And if you don't believe what he believes and think the way he thinks he should be able to harass you into being silent. He thinks that's a good tactic. It's perfectly satisfactory. That's how the system should work. It's just too ridiculously evil and stupid an argument. And so, I mean, I don't think I should, in making physics arguments, I really don't think I should have to tolerate that attitude. And I think anybody should keep me to the same standards. I mean, I've used the example of Pirro. I know his real name. He outed himself, so I can legitimately use it, because he doxed himself years ago. So I should do that. I should post his name in my comment section for no good reason, just to threaten him, just to show him I can play games with your life. I can fuck with you. And that's a physics argument. I can fuck with you. I can, threaten you. It's that obvious. There's no other reason to do it except to threaten the person. It's just taking your gun and showing your scope at their head and saying, look, say what I don't want to hear, and I'll play games with your personal life. I mean, it's disgusting that some asshole would defend that on the internet. Okay, so that's a legitimate tactic. And this jackass is pretending like, oh, I don't mind. Well, yeah, because you don't say anything. What do you say that's controversial? So why don't you take a controversial stand and make videos taking that controversial stand, and then see what happens to you. Then see if you're left alone, okay? That the fanatics won't start jihading on you, fuckhead. I mean, you're just such an idiot. To defend something completely unnecessary. It's completely unnecessary. There's no good reason. There's absolutely no good reason to involve any of these peripheral objects. My house, images of my house, images of my family. No good reason to involve any of that in this discussion. And my name, as pointed out, it's not the kind of thing. In America, your name is your address, is a lot of things, because that's the way the Googleverse works. And so you're just opening the door to people with bad motives, and those people exist, taking advantage of the invitation you're providing. Again, what would somebody think if I post Pirro's name? What is the purpose of it? Except to basically tell people, go harass this guy. It's disgusting. It's a disgusting thing to defend on the internet. And he knows the principle, because he basically just said it. So yes, I should have cops at my house. I've committed some kind of crime that deserves to have police at my house. Amazing that he would defend that. So, what can I say? All right, so maybe I'll deal with one of his arguments first, just get it over with. But like I say, I don't know. I'm not gonna, maybe once a month I'll go see if he's made a video or something. I don't know, but I'm not gonna participate with this asshole. I mean, he's just too stupid to be on the internet, frankly. He can't get the basics right. All right. So we'll deal with one of his. He doesn't understand the velocity argument from the lever. So I'll make it. I think he would understand what wheel balancing is. I mean, he does seem to have a fairly well-equipped garage or basement or whatever the fuck it is. I guess it's a basement. So when you balance a wheel, okay, on a tire, the idea is to make sure the weight, you put a new tire on, the tire can be a little uneven, so you put little weights on it, right? So the argument, the simple argument is, if I was going to put a one mass weight out here, all right, where can I put other weights on this other side of the wheel to balance the wheel? So let's say I start with a balanced wheel. We're just doing it for the purpose of showing how balancing works. Well, at two distances, okay, from the center of the wheel, I could put, I have a one mass out here. I could put a two mass here, and that'll be double the velocity. So you can understand that this will move this distance in the same space that this will move this distance, will be half the distance. And that, if I let's say I put a 4 here, okay, I could balance the wheel by putting a 2 here, or I could put a 1 here, okay, 4 times the velocity, 4 times the distance in the same amount of time. So a one mass moving 4 times the speed will balance a 4 mass. Oh, I should have put it way out here. That was my bad. The 4 mass in here. Okay, so I have a 4 mass here, close to the hub. 2 distances away, I can put a 2 mass, and 4 distances away. What the hell was that? Some people stack things. Yeah. Where was I? 2. So I can put the 1 mass out here. Okay. So if I put the 1 mass here and I have a 4 mass on, it has to be on this side so you can understand the balancing part. A 4 mass there. Let's just get rid of all this other stuff that are just confused morons. I mean, they really are that stupid that they'll be confused if I'm not very careful. So this will go 4 units of distance in the same time, in the same amount. This one goes 1 unit of distance. So 4 units of distance, 1 unit of distance. 4 times the velocity for a 1 mass will equal 1 unit of velocity for the 4 mass. That basically proves these are equalities. Okay, now I demonstrate that the lever is showing you exactly the same thing, and he doesn't understand. I mean, I don't know how he can't understand. 4 mass here moves 1 unit of distance. 1 mass out here moves 4 units of distance. That balances. That's telling you these things are equal in terms of their energy. The energy required to make them move, the energy they produce by moving, is equal. Not 1 mass at 2. 2 velocity isn't enough. It won't work. This will be heavier. This will swing down, and this will swing up. And it'll stay that way. It will not balance. It will fail to balance. I can't believe he needs this explained. The other thing he's doing is his stupid weights are washers. So he's stacking washers next to each other and then banging them into something. So obviously you can understand how they're not going to hit at the same time. They're going to rub against each other. They're going to move all over the place. You can't have a non-solid mass hitting a non-solid mass. I mean, that's really not clever. He's so dumb that it's almost like, well, why are you bothering anyway? Well, he's too stupid to have this conversation. So maybe that's the way we'll just leave it. He's too stupid for the conversation. Besides being just too unethical to participate in reasonable and fair debate. All right, so the mindless marbles, who's also guilty of making excuses for really poor behavior. Your physics doesn't take into account that it's about the time you're in the gravity, not the distance. So it's a simple enough statement that it's a time-dependent force, that any force, anything that's a constant force, is a time-dependent force. That's the word constant has to do with how frequently it is and how much it is. And it's just basically telling you that time is going to tell how much rain gets in the bucket, right? If it's 1 inch per hour, it's telling you how much rain you'll collect in a bucket. Okay. What exactly do you even mean it's about the time you're in the gravity anyways? So I don't know how he can't understand. We're saying basically we have a constant force and we're going to stick an object into the constant force, the stream, for example. It's producing a constant amount of pressure per unit of time and a constant amount of water. And so if I was to stick a pipe into the stream, I could depend on a certain constant amount of water being diverted by my pipe. And he can't understand that. Well, he's feigning some misunderstanding, right? Because we don't think he's too stupid for that, do we? I mean, again, this is a 10-year-old can understand that if I have a stream moving at a constant rate and I put a certain size opening into the stream, I'll collect a certain amount of water per unit of time. There'll be a certain number of gallons per minute that I will divert into the pipe. What is the it? So he has a problem not understanding it's a force. And the force happens, the pressure happens, the impacts, you could even say. I would argue they're clearly impacts, but whatever. It's the number of interactions between the force and the object. So I really have to explain this to you? I mean, you really don't understand. I mean, with all the analogies I've given to rain and paint sprayer and even photons, you don't understand that a certain number of photons hit the earth per a certain unit of time over a certain area. You don't understand that concept? Okay. In that sentence, can you even answer that? So, I mean, why should I have to answer it? I mean, it's, again, this is what, 6-year-old? I don't know. How this doesn't require much brain function at all to understand that if I stick something in front of a paint sprayer, the longer I hold it in front of the paint sprayer, the more paint that's going to get on the surface. I have to explain that to you? Oh, come on. If not, then it's clear you are repeating phrases by Gary like a religious mantra. So what has to, again, how deep is your imbecility that you're really requiring somebody to explain how you get wet in the rain? That as the rain falls, you're collecting drops of the rain on your clothing and it becomes saturated with the rain. The longer you're in the rain, the more raindrops will hit you, the more saturated you'll become. I'm pouring water out of a pitcher into a glass and the glass is filling up, and that there's a certain time where the glass will overflow. You know, I have to explain these things to you? Too silly, right? Yes, just ridiculous. That this is the level of the counter argument is this feeble. All right, it's like understanding it's not your goal whatsoever. So yeah, I think I'll just pause and I just what is the reaction to this except what the fuck game are you playing, you fucking lunatic? How the fuck can you talk like you can't understand a paint sprayer? All right, should be able to continue. Computer's a little buggy, so yeah, video making is a little dicey at the moment. Anyway, physicist Michael says he's using force to hold a mass against gravity, but says no work is present. So this understanding of the word work is where all this kind of falls apart. Because all you can do is divert energy, right? So the stream can be flowing and it's not doing anything we would call work. Now you could say, let's say I could make it I could make it a flume, you know, stainless steel, and there's no friction with the water. You know, I put oil on it and it's perfect. The water just flows. There's no friction, no anything. So there's no dissipation of energy in any other directions, and the water's just flowing down the flume. It's not doing a damn thing for us. Okay, and then I can put the water wheel in it, right? And now the water's working on the wheel and turning the wheel, and so its energy is going into the turning of the wheel. So we're really just talking about diverting some kind of motion in the universe. And we call it work when it's doing something we like, and we call it something else, okay, when it's dissipating the energy in some form we don't have any use for. So the light bulb can create light, and it can create light that comes my way, and it can create light over there that isn't, it's not very useful, so I'm wasting some of it, you know, because it's not doing me any good. It's not functioning and, you know, presenting or making the video better. So it's not work, okay, in the sense that it's not constructive work. But all motion is working, okay? So you could argue that if you can make a light, you know, like let's say you could capture a photon in a perfect mirror, you know, and the photon would just keep bouncing off the perfect mirror. It would be kind of silly to say, okay, it's not doing any work. Well, it's not changing its energy. It's not dissipating it. It's not converting it from the photon into some other form. But that's all it's not doing. It's just not going through any conversion process, but it's always working. It's always motion. It has energy. So the difference between what energy is, that is some mass moving, and this notion of work, it's just a little sloppy, and you'll just be able to concede that. All right, no work is present, so we do ignore that gravity is a constant force pushing down the mass against his hand. So clearly, I stick my hand in the stream is always hitting it, okay? So if my hand's going to stay still, it has to in some way compensate for the work the stream's doing on my hand. I have to, some kind of object has to do the counter work. Now the fact is I can stick my hand in really rigid, okay, and then I can have a device that connects to the earth and pushes into the earth. You know, pushes some object on the earth and pushes on it and forces the earth to push back. And so then the earth is doing the work. And there's some stress in the connector. Obviously the connecting object is stressed, and it's going to do some changing. But the more efficient, the more stiff I make it, the less it loses. So the more perfect I can make it as a stiff object, the more capable it is of transferring the pressure back and forth without waste, without losing any, without degrading and stretching and deforming. So you could put a spring between two pieces of plastic, and in 100 days, the plastic will bend and the spring will open. Or I can put it between two pieces of steel, and it might take 20 years. It might take forever for the spring to exercise any kind of enough sufficient force to start bending the steel. All right, I thought gravity was a time-dependent force according to draft science and its fans, so I don't know what all that crap is. Yeah, clearly. So what does that have to do with the fact that the argument is it's a constant force? I mean, it's right there. It's always present. Constant force pushing down the mass on against his hand. So yeah, constant is a word describing time. It has time in it. Okay. Now you are saying it is constant. Yes, constant means it is time dependent. Anything that's constantly doing something, it will be time dependent. How much of that change, how much you can interrupt it, or how much anything that happens to it will happen time dependent. The longer your hand is in it, the more pressure you will be absorbing. Which one is it anyways? So there's no confusion. So again, more feigned complication, like this is somehow complicated. That anything that's a constant force can't be and will be measured at a rate. It'll have a rate. If it has a constancy, it has a rate. Okay, anyway, if you're holding something and you replace your arm, which consists of striated muscles constantly being sent electrical impulses, yeah, exactly. Anyway, by a metal bar, does the metal bar start losing energy the way you are losing energy? No, it doesn't. But what does that have to do with the fact that you are doing work? Again, we're back to the argument. You can lift a weight really slow, or you can lift a weight efficiently and quickly. And the fact is those two things are a different action. One of them is wasting energy, and one of them doesn't waste energy. Doesn't waste work, force. Do you seriously fail to see how silly what you and draft science are proposing? Yes, we seriously don't think it's silly to understand that a constant force has a rate, okay, and that the more you're fighting the rate, okay, the longer the number of moments you're in the paint spray, the more spray is going to get on you, and you're going to have to deal with it. And so the quicker you can get through the paint spray, the less work you'll have to do against the paint. Okay, less work you'll have to do cleaning the paint off of you. Let's put it that way. Just a fact. Okay. JFC, whatever that is, just gave this some minimal thought. Holy shit. I don't know what that even... What? Sorry, yeah, it's impossible. What conversation there can be with somebody who can't understand the simple analogy of a paint sprayer? And that if the spray is something I don't want, I'm going to have to do work to get it off me. It's going to cost me to take the paint off. That the less paint I get on me, the better. The less work I'll have to do. I mean, it's not a one-to-one analogy, but I mean, it's close enough to say, what aren't you understanding? If I'm pushing against a force and I'm not doing it efficiently, that is, I'm not getting the weight into the ground perfectly efficiently, and instead I'm fucking it up, moving it all kinds of places, even sideways. You know, when you're holding a weight, you're moving it all kinds of ways. Clearly, I'm going to be doing personal work, and it's clear that I do. I clearly do sweat. I clearly do lose energy. I clearly am consuming a bunch of need to create motion and heat. I end up creating a bunch of extra heat. And if I lift it quickly and efficiently, I don't have that problem. All right, yeah, I don't know. He's just too stupid, really. Draft Science used a great example. If you sit in a chair for a prolonged period, your ass will get tired eventually because gravity is pushing you down. And he says, oh, I actually agree. This is a great example. It is perfect. Now replace your ass by anything else you see. Okay, so I could take a 150-pound weight and put it on the chair. Okay. How dumb Gary's physics actually is. If you place a box on the chair, so a box that weighs 150 pounds, for a prolonged period, does the box get tired? Well, the chair certainly does. The chair bends, the cushion in the chair collapses, and then over time, yeah, the box will actually start to deform to the shape of that cushion because of all of that pressure being applied constantly. And it won't happen instantly. It'll happen over time because the pressure is constant. It'll keep deforming. It'll keep doing it. And the longer the box is on the chair, the more permanent the deformation will be. So if I leave the box for a month or two and then take it off the chair, I'll see that the vinyl has been just completely ruined. And now I have a permanent defect in it because I've stretched it and deformed it and essentially ruined it. Okay. So he's pretending like it's an empty box. Yeah, well, the empty box is going to take a very long time because it has very little mass. So that's the difference between dropping a hammer and dropping a feather. Even an idiot can figure out which one has absorbed more energy. Shit. It's just too stupid. Okay, the box gets tired eventually because gravity is pushing you down. Do you see how silly this is? No, I don't see how there's any difference in creating some different mechanism and then saying the pressure doesn't exist. The pressure still exists. The objects are under pressure. They are constantly, the weight will constantly be pushing on the earth, and the earth will be constantly pushing back. And it's a clearly easy to demonstrate experiment. It can be seen in all kinds of ways. Again, just the simple idea of you putting anything on a cushion on a chair and you will see the force of gravity do its thing. You will see the work done. Who the fuck is the one with the silly cartoonish physics? Oh my God. Yes, well that's what this is about, right? Some kind of God thing. That's what this is really about somewhere. I mean, there's something about you that you must reject rational physics, and you must fight it with any kind of preposterous, stupid argument. Yes, there's a difference. I put a hammer on the chair, a vinyl chair, and leave it for a month, and I put a feather on the vinyl chair for a month. Yes, there'll be a difference. One of them will deform and stretch the material, one of them won't. And by the way, your ass doesn't get tired in the same way you get tired from exercise. So yeah, it does. It's pretty much exactly the same thing because your ass is constantly being forced to deal with the fact that it's being pushed down, pushed up, pushed down, pushed up, pushed down, pushed up, constantly. This should be obvious. I think it's obvious that that's what's happening. The force is transferring through your ass. Your ass is the medium, the conduit between the two forces. One force that's saying this is my pressure, and the other side saying this is my pressure, and the ass is right in between those two, and it has to constantly equalize those pressures. And it constantly is doing this to do the equalization. It's an oscillating lever. Yeah. Instead, your ass, let's see, by the way, your ass does not get tired the way you get tired from exercise. This should be obvious. Well, it's clearly not obvious. There's no reason to say that's obvious. It's obvious that your ass isn't constantly being forced down and then constantly having to deal with being pushed up, when that's exactly why you feel the discomfort over time, is because of that fact. You're compressing things. Veins and arteries and all kinds of capillaries are being smushed by the contact. Instead, your ass gets discomfort because the soft tissue there are squished for a prolonged, and squished by what? How are they squished? What's squishing them? And what is the counter thing, okay, that allows the squishing to take place? And are any of those things steel against steel? No, they're not. So they're bouncing. All right, circulation get reduced. In fact, when you sit for a long time, it is helpful to do movement and exercises. This is the complete opposite of what you expect if you and Gary are saying is true. So that's exactly an insane lie. I've only described it hundreds, yes, literally hundreds of times. I've pointed out you are oscillating in the gravity. Although it's a constant force, just like rain can be constant at 1 inch an hour, at any one moment, there might be a ½ inch, and there might be 1.5 inches. There might be fluctuations in how much you're actually absorbing. And that's exactly what's happening through your body. Any shift in your mass means that there's a different shift in where the pressure is high or low. Any change in your center of gravity moves the pressure to different locations. All kinds of variations are happening in where the pressure, the contact point, takes place, and where the transfer between the pressure of the earth up and the force of gravity down, that differential has to be dealt with. So again, you're saying, this is so inanely silly. Again, 10-year-old. There's no way do you think a 10-year-old is going to say, I can't figure out how paint spraying has anything to do with how much time you hold something in the spray? I can't figure that out. I can't figure out how if I go out in the rain and I stand there for an hour that I get wetter. What do you mean I get wetter? How do I get wetter? That's so bad. Your example is so good because it demolishes Gary and your argument so well. So just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. This is so stupid. I mean, why should people shouldn't have to argue things this ridiculous? This is like arguing that you shouldn't try to harass people off the internet by sending cops to their house. You shouldn't defend that. It's ridiculous. All right. Like Draft Science said in the video, which you ignored, work, force, momentum are all the same. Work, force, momentum are all the same according to whom? According to the experiments that have been done. Okay. It's kind of just demonstrated by the fact that there's an actual gravitational force, okay, and you can measure it with this kind of device. This device measures it. And then this device, put this way, measures momentum. So obviously this is momentum, and this is momentum, and this is measuring, it's a force. It's an amount. Yeah. And those things are equal. And certainly it's according to Newton. No. Same thing. Force, momentum, same thing. And obviously work is just a word we use to describe when we've converted a force into some kind of action we like. All right. Work, force, momentum are all the same according to whom? Seriously, who ever says that? Who does it matter whoever says it? But I could argue that, of course, Newton, Galileo, and Descartes said it. Okay. I mean, they didn't have the word energy and momentum, but clearly quantity of motion, in their opinion, covered all of those things. And Newton explicitly basically said, force equals the change in your momentum. Clearly said it. So that's who says so. So whoever said that, Newton said it. as usual, you are just repeating mantras like a good religious sheep. And again, you're just repeating mantras, so just hypocrisy all over the place. Because you have a weird infatuation with Gary. You are possessed by brain worms, making you incapable of basic thought. So this is a guy who can't figure out how a paint sprayer works, that it's time dependent. Yeah, and he's going to insult other people's capacity to do basic thinking. All right, the fact that you are mindlessly repeat stuff Gary says without thought demonstrates the point. No, they're just re-emphasizing a point you haven't countered with anything reasonable. So you didn't reasonably counter any of the arguments made, okay, that it's obvious that there is work being done when you're holding an object. There's just no way to evade the work being done if you're human. Now, if you're a steel pole, okay, the work being done will be the earth. You'll directly transfer, and there won't be any waste work. But clearly a human is going to create lots of waste work. Humans can't hold something against gravity without doing it inefficiently. It's just a fact. All right. So, let's see. So, Dark says, whether you're lifting an object, holding an object, or pushing an object takes work. Do you agree or disagree? I want a straightforward answer. Clearly, if you're holding an object against a force, it takes work. Now, if I go out into space where there's no gravity and I stick something in my hand, okay, I can hold it and I won't do any work. It's got the same motion I have. We are just touching each other incidentally. There's no forces involved, so no counter work will have to be accomplished to keep it there. But again, any system I create where there's a force being applied, then something's going to have to do the transfer. And we're really just talking about perfectly efficient transfers versus inefficient transfers. Because the ground is ultimately going to do the work. The ground is going to equalize the pressure. And it will equalize it by increasing its pressure. So the more mass that I put on the earth, the more pressure I create inside the earth. Just a fact. Yeah. That's why the big things get very hot in their center, is because everything you put on top ends up pushing down and creating higher and higher pressure. Constant higher pressure. All right. Because of gravity. Take away the gravity, no pressure. Everything just goes boom. All right. I'm just so fucking stupid. I mean, again, it's beneath. This is a conversation beneath what the subject deserves. The subject deserves better arguments than this nonsense that I don't understand how you get wet in the rain. I don't understand how paint sticks to a surface. I don't understand how photons sunburn you. I don't understand. How does time mean anything? How much time I sit in the sun have anything to do with how sunburned I get? I mean, it's too ridiculous. All right. So I'll pause there and decide if there's any. It's just so dismal. I mean, it's just, I guess, I could go through the, the 3-to-1 thing again, the free energy pendulum thing. I don't even know how people can't get that argument. It's just so obviously bizarre, right? So, just for fun. See, I gotta wait. See, my hand can't be steady. All right, so I drop one thing in, I get one thing out the other side. Okay, same energy in, same energy out. Now, if I could theoretically stick all three of these together, and I could, but I'm just not going to put glue on them. Their argument is that I'm going to get twice the energy that this is going to hit, then the 3 will go out that way, right, with 1.5 times the momentum. Okay, so it's going to have 1.5 times the momentum I put in. It's going to fly out this way with the 3, and the 1 is going to fly back with 1/2 the momentum. And then they're going to come back together, and only one momentum is going to pop back out. So I'll create twice the momentum. I'll have this going 150 and this will go 50, and then they'll come back together and I'll go back to just having one again. That's all. They think that just gluing those three things together will double the momentum of the system. Somehow I gave that thing I dropped twice the power by just gluing the thing it's going to hit together. And they can't understand how, well, yeah, that doesn't make much sense, and that if you're going to say it's true, you ought to be able to explain it in some way. Draw me the picture explaining how it's possible that that could be a real event. Yeah, but no, we don't get any of that. All right, they're all hostile to drawings. They don't like people drawing and explaining with diagrams. See, drawing a wheel and then drawing the diagram, oh, they think that's just the worst thing you can possibly do. It's so unscientific. I mean, that's how bad this is, right? Even a little kid knows, draw me a picture. Yeah, please. Little kids will draw in the dirt. They'll draw in the sand. You know, girl with boobs, of course, but, you know, they'll draw. Drawing is fun. It's useful. I mean, when I was like 12, I used to make movies on paper, you know, little pads of paper. And, you know, they were always pornographic movies, but, you know, you flip the little pieces of paper and little images, you know. I was kind of famous for it, because, you know, I was a fair artist, and you know, so I could make a reasonably funny stick figure and do this and that, and so, well, whatever. But, you know, it's one of my talents as a kid. One of the few things people liked me for. But anyway, you know, fuck. This is just so ridiculous to have an argument about, you know, to have to explain to somebody balancing a wheel. Okay, this is now the physics conversation, as you have to explain how wheel balancing works. Oh, fuck. No, not good enough. All right, so yeah, I'll pause, but I think that's enough of a video. All right, I thought, well, what the hell, I'll try to add a little extra value. Just to get to this distinction about work. You know, and the fact is that the argument being made by Descartes, Galileo, and Newton, a reasonable argument, that there's this conservation of energy, that energy is a quantity, and it never stops. So all you can do is, like, you could have a stream, okay, that has this force in it, that has energy stored in it. Its motion has force, okay, an amount of force, an amount of motion. And the fact is that all you're really saying is that you can do different things, okay? I could make it a really rough surface, okay? And so then I'll lose a whole bunch of this force, will be driven into the surface, okay? And now the force is going this way in some kind of weird way, and it's going in all kinds of directions. So you could understand, I could take a laser beam, let's say, maybe do that as an example, and I could put it through a diffraction gradient, okay? And all of a sudden the laser beam is going to come out in all kinds of directions. And part of it is going to get, you know, absorbed. It's going to be coming out, and it's also going to be absorbing the little substances inside here will start to heat up because they're actually doing some work, okay? Some of them are ending up consuming the energy of the photons. Okay, so not all the photons are transmitted. Some of them hit little particles and then spins the particles inside, creates motion inside the material itself. So it'll gain a little bit of heat, and so you have a little bit of energy. Some of the force will end up going out as, you know, I'll just do squiggly lines for energy that's going in all kinds of directions that, you know, you can't use it as work because it's in all kinds of directions. You can't collect it. You can't make a bucket that can collect energy that way efficiently. But that's all that's really happening. It's always some thing that you've got to tap. So you can understand the water wheel and the stream. I mean, that was really easy, right? I mean, you're tapping the stream. The force is only in this little narrow piece of water. That's the only place the force is. And you can stick something in it. Well, gravity is the same thing, except the stream is, you know, the Mississippi River. It's this gigantic thing that covers the entire surface of the round Earth, okay? is with this even flow of force. Force differential. There's force, motion, okay, and there's less motion over here, okay, and that's all you're really measuring is you have a differential in the motion. So there's more stuff pushing you down than there is stuff pushing you up, and you end up going down as a result when you're left to be free to fall. And the only way I can change that is I could rub something against you, okay? If I rub something against you, what am I going to do? I'm going to pull the energy you got, the force you got out, I'm going to pull it out, okay? And again, I can create heat, I can do all kinds of things by doing that. And what I'll be doing is diminishing how much energy you collected from the force in the time you were falling. So I could drop you in 1 second, okay, and allow you to fall your complete distance, and then you have an impact. Or I could rub against you, okay, and I could steal your energy and make you hit the ground going much, much slower, because I stole all your velocity, okay, through some friction or through some string tied to a cart. I could make a cart move, and I could make this hit the ground with, 1/10 of the force it would have had, because I took all the energy out of it. I made the energy go into moving some other pieces of matter. So it's just all motion that's always moving. So it can go from a big thing, I could have a big thing, 1,000 atoms going 1 mile an hour. Or I can have one atom going 1,000 miles an hour. All right, and those are the same amount of force. It's the same amount of energy in those things. This thing could be just broken into 1,000 little individual things going 1 mile an hour, and they will cause other little things to move 1 mile an hour. And the same thing can happen here. I can have this hit 1,000 little things and give each one of them 1 mile an hour, and I could use up its energy that way. But it's all equal. It's all just mass moving, and all you're doing is conserving the MV. You're not conserving something called MV squared. Conserving MV squared means you have a preposterous proposition. I mean, there's a simple argument to be made. If you want to go 5 times faster, use 5 times the fuel. That's what Newton said. Okay? 5 times the force, 5 times the velocity. All right? Or you can believe what they believe, that it's 25 times the force, okay, to go 5 times faster. 25 times the gasoline. No, too silly. Absolute nonsense. And again, it's all based on the thing Ian Gosling wishes to defend, that somehow, okay, that somehow something, one mass with 2 velocity, okay, is the same as a 4 mass with 1 velocity. And it's nonsense. Obviously this has to have a 1 mass with 4 velocity. Obviously this equals this, not this. And so believe what you wish. I mean, I'm just saying there's no good reason to believe it. It's all premised on this wrong assumption. It's all started with this silly notion that this equals this, when it doesn't. The force of this is twice as much little bits moving. The same, if you reduce it to the same speed, if you said all the little bits were going the same speed, this clearly has twice as many bits going. If I reduce it to all 1 mile an hour, this one has twice as many bits moving 1 mile an hour. I mean, 4 times as many bits moving 1 mile an hour. Well, it's twice as many total bits. As if I do the conversion, these bits, I convert these, I have less velocity I'm starting with, and this one has twice the velocity I'm starting with. So each bit has $2, where each bit here has $1. And the bottom line, though, is this one is richer. This one has twice as much total money when you add it up. I mean, so it's premised on something stupid, a mistake, a wrong axiom, a false statement. 4 pounds dropped 1 foot is not the same energy as 1 pound dropped 4 feet. It's just not the same energy. It doesn't balance. It's not the truth. And the fact that everything you're arguing is premised on that falsehood should bother you. You know, it should disturb your brain should have some dissonance and say, gee, that really doesn't make much sense. It is plainly based on a false premise. But instead you do this shit. You mock the intelligence of people who say, oh, please, you have to do better than that. I'm smart enough to know the longer I'm in the rain, the wetter I'm going to get. All right. Enough. Jesus. It's just amazing that this has taken so long, that there's such, this opposition is so hard to pound through, that all of the fucking physicists are such cowards. I mean, they won't express an opinion. You can offer them $50, you can offer $100, you offer them $200, you offer them $4,000, and they won't talk about the subject. Amazing. They won't address any of the arguments. They'll probably talk about it, just like I'll play a Degrassi Tyson video later, right, where he's talking about the double slit. And it's just amazing horseshit. I mean, just completely disconnected from all reality. And you're just saying, this is their physics. Fuck the truth, fuck the facts. Let's just tell our stories about what we did. Our magical detector experiments. You know. Oh, it's pathetic.